Hello everybody and welcome back to KWT's Microsoft Outlook Basics course. Today we're going to review the inner workings of the subject line of an email. While this seems like a very innocuous element of an email, the value can actually drive a significant amount of process. Now I want to start with if somebody sends an email where they put the entire message in the subject line, that's okay, and you can do it. And if you choose to use email to do this, please put EOM for end of message in the subject line. It just makes it easier for those of us receiving the messages to know that's it. That's all there is to the message, just what's in the subject line. I know I've frequently been frustrated by someone sending these types of message, and I've gone opening the email looking for more content when really all that's there is what's in the subject line. I highly recommend with these kind of short, brief messages that you look into using an instant message or a chat feature. Most people have access to one of these types of tools and use that instead of email. Just a reminder, we've talked about this before, but your subject line does get prefixed with FW for a forward and RE for a reply. And this is just important to keep in mind, as there are methods of manually or via rules handling your email within Outlook based on these features. Subject line content is important, and it's important that your subject line be relevant to the email that you are sending. Marketing folks understand this, and they spend a lot of time crafting just the right subject line to get people to open their emails. Now, within a corporate environment, we aren't under quite as much pressure, but we certainly can improve communications and information uptake by following a few simple rules when crafting your subject lines. Keep it short and simple. Don't write a book. The body of the email is there for a reason. Avoid filler words. Adjectives and adverbs are not required. The subject line does not have to be grammatically correct. Make the subject line relevant to the topic. Have you ever received an email with the subject line of "New switch in Denver office"? But when you open the email, it's all about a server that's having problems in the Baltimore office. This causes confusion. Clearly somebody has copied an existing email, which in principle is fine. Content is often reusable as our email lists, but it's important to ensure that the new email content receives a new relevant subject line. Include some keywords in the subject line that will help the recipient search for the email later. I once received an email with details of a user's requirements for a new report. We had discussed it over a lunch meeting the day before. When I went searching for this email later, it took me way too long to find it, since the subject line turned out to be "Thanks for lunch." I kept bypassing this email in my searches, thinking that can't be it. Even if the sender had used "Thanks for lunch, here's the report details we discussed," I would have been much further ahead. Changing the subject line is sometimes required, but there are other times when you absolutely should not change the subject line. So I'm going to give you two scenarios here, and it's something to keep in mind to prevent confusion and to improve communication with other people. In the first case, if you're reusing an existing email to either reuse content or to take advantage of a specific collection of addressees, that's great. That's time effective, and that can be a time saver. However, you must make sure you change the subject line to match your new message. First of all, remove the RE prefix. If somebody is handling their emails based on that, you want them to deal with this as a new email, not as a reply. And make sure your subject line is updated to match the new topic that you are introducing. In the second case, if you're continuing the thread of an existing conversation, do not change the subject line. Some people have a tendency to update the subject line with new information, but that will simply break the thread of the conversation. And for those that use the conversation view, which we'll talk about later on in the course, they will lose track of that conversation. And when they go back to try to figure out what the conversation was about, they may miss some key points. So it's important to remember that subject line is critical, not only to good communication, but also to being able to effectively manage your emails later on. Keep an eye on that subject line and make sure it is relevant. Thank you very much, and this concludes this module.